Honourable Member for Surrey North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's an honor to speak to this bill C-15, an act to replace the Northwest Territories Act. Before I do that, I wanted this House to know, and people that are watching, especially in the Northwest Territories, the member from Western Arctic has been vocal advocate of the Northwest Territories. He's a native, and that shows in his commitment to the people of Northwest Territories. He has been vocal about bringing their views into this House and addressing some of their concerns, unlike the Conservatives, who have failed to listen to all of the parties, stakeholders that have voiced their concerns in regards to this bill. Mr. Speaker, this bill basically gives more powers transfers more powers to the Northwest Territories. In the provinces, we already look after our resources, look after our waters. We do that in the provinces, but this bill actually is an amendment to the Northwest Territories Constitution to allow them to make local decisions that are in local interest. You know, the parliamentary secretary just talked about, this bill is holding hostage the development of resources in Northwest Territories. My question to him is, what took them so long? It's been 8 years since they've been in government. They're the one who are creating this uncertainty. They could have brought this Devolution Act long before, but they chose not to do that. And Mr. Speaker, we on this side totally agree with the Northwest Territories in transferring power in regards to their own management of their resources. You know, like all the other bills that Conservatives bring in this House, there's usually a little caveat in each bill, and there's also a caveat in this bill. We've seen this movie played over and over, where they'll bring in a bill. There's few good things in there, and there's few poison pills in there, and that's a similar thing in this bill. If you look at what people of Northwest Territory wanted, they wanted to look at transferring of power, devolution, and also what the Conservatives did. They made changes to the Mackenzie Valley Resource Management Act, which a lot of people in Northwest Territories aren't too pleased about it. Of course, they want devolution, transfer of powers to make local decisions, and that makes sense, and we agree with that. We agree with people in Northwest Territory. We've been advocating for transferring more powers to the province or territories so they can make local decisions that will have local input into development of Northwest Territories. Mr. Speaker, making one trip a year to Northwest Territories is not looking after Northwest Territories. These Conservatives had a chance to bring this bill forward. 8 years, the last 8 years, they haven't done that. So we're glad they finally brought it together. Mr. Speaker, this particular bill basically will transfer transfer powers, administrative control of public lands, resources, and rights in respect to waters in the Northwest Territories. There's a huge support among Northwest Territory governments, the First Nations and Métis group. They wanted this transfer of powers many, many years ago, and we're glad that they're doing that. The other changes that have concerns in the Northwest Territories is in regards to the changes to the Mackenzie Valley Resource Management Act. Basically, Mr. Speaker, what that does is they have regional boards that work very well. They work very well, and in fact, they're making local decisions. What this particular act does is it dissolves those local boards and puts in a bigger board, a super board that looks after the Northwest Territories. Mr. Speaker, there are many, many concerns in regards to this particular change to the Mackenzie Valley Resource Management Act. And then this is a quote from a number of people that have expressed concerns in regards to in regards to the changes to the MVRMA, Bob Bromley, he MLA in February 2012, he's pointed out that, and I quote this, the federal government's proposal to collapse the regional land and water boards into one big board is disturbing, unnecessary, and possibly unconstitutional. A single board does nothing to meet the real problem, failure of implementation. Again, Mr. Speaker, we've seen over and over. When this House makes changes to laws, we make laws or there's legislation in front of us, it's our responsibility to consult the stakeholders, to bring in experts, to bring in people that are going to be affected, the stakeholders, the very people that are going to be affected. We listen to them, and we make proper legislation that will have maximum benefit for Canadians. And we've seen over and over again where Conservatives fail to consult their stakeholders, people that are going to be affected by particular legislation, and that is a similar case in this particular legislation, Mr. Speaker, especially in regards to the changes being made to the Mackenzie Valley Resource Management Act. Over and over, we've heard from my honourable member from Western Arctic, again, who has spoken up for the people of Northwest Territories. We've heard from him that the people on the ground, they weren't sure whether these changes to these changes to this act were going to be made either by two bills. Let's have the devolution bill, transfer of powers in regards to resources, management, control over administrative in one bill, and then look at the Mackenzie Valley Resource Management, changes to the Mackenzie Valley Resource Management Act separately. Yet the Conservatives chose not to do that. And I have to give it to Conservatives here because they usually don't like amendments. And this particular bill, and I've seen thousands of amendments from the opposition parties being defeated in various different bills. This particular bill, they may accept it two NDP amendments, and that's because of the hard work of my honourable member from Western Arctic. Like I said, he speaks up for people from Northwest Territories, and we've seen Conservatives not wanting to make changes that people at the ground wants. And we've introduced a couple of amendments at the report stage that we like to see Conservatives support so that they can listen to the people at the very ground that are demanding these changes to be made. And I'm hoping my Conservative colleagues will look at those changes. Mr. Speaker, there are other validators in support of devolution, which we support and which we have encouraged the government to transfer these powers. Again, it's taken them 8 years to get to this point to make these changes. And we support those because those changes will allow for decisions to be made at a local level. That'll have local input. That'll provide stability. Of course, it'll provide stability for resource development in the Northwest Territory, Mr. Speaker. Here's Robert McLeod, the Premier of Northwest Territories, and he's supportive of devolution. The Assembly has a vision of strong, prosperous, and sustainable territory. Devolution is a path to the future responsibility of our lands and resources, is the key to unlocking the economic potential that will provide opportunities to all our residents. And he said this back in June of 2013 in the Legislative Assembly. Of course, this will provide for prosperity for the Northwest Territories, and the NDP has been advocating for people of Northwest Territories. Again, Mr. Speaker, I know I don't have much time left, and I encourage my honourable colleagues across the aisle to support the amendments that we are proposing so that the people of Northwest Territories can see a change, can see a sustainability, can see resource development, can hear their voices in this House, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Good job.